Hello, my name is ELFIN NADILA. Welcome to my video. In this video, I would like to tell you some useful expression for a discussion. So, let's check this out. For a chairperson, you can use this expression. The purpose of our discussion is, let's discuss. If we talk about blah blah blah, it seems necessary to discuss blah 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 and decide which is the most and the least blah blah blah. Let me start with blah blah blah. Let's begin with blah blah blah. Let's discuss this first. First, we need to blah blah blah. Who would like to begin? Can you explain your point a little more clearly? Can we see what other people think about this? Who has not had a chance to speak yet? Is there any last comment on this point before we move on to the next one? So, we have two opposing arguments here. On the one hand, blah blah blah. On the other hand, blah blah blah. In other words, most of us think that blah blah blah. Can we draw any conclusion for what we have been saying? And next, for everyone, you can giving your opinion with, I think that blah blah blah. In my opinion, or in my view, blah blah blah. As far as I can see, blah blah blah, or I concern, blah blah blah. Surely, blah blah blah. The main reason for my opinion is blah blah blah. To my mind, blah blah blah. In fact, blah blah blah. To the best of my knowledge, blah blah blah. The way I see it, if you ask me, I'm not sure if blah blah blah. It is said, it is believed, or it is known that blah blah blah. It is obvious that blah blah blah. It seems to me that blah blah blah. I have a feeling, or I have that feeling that blah blah blah. Well, I'd say blah blah blah. You can take it from me that blah blah blah. If you ask me, it seems to me that blah blah blah. If you want my opinion, first of all, or to start with, I'd like to point out there can be no doubt that blah blah blah. Nobody will deny that blah blah blah. Everyone knows blah blah blah. Let's get this clear, or let's get this clear first. The point I'm trying to make is blah blah blah. I'm absolutely confident that blah blah blah. The way I look at, or the way I see it, is this blah blah blah. And for giving an explanation, you can say, look, it's like this. The reason for this is blah blah blah. Just let me explain. Well, the thing is blah blah blah. What I mean is blah blah blah. The main problem is blah blah blah. Well, the reason is, above all, we must keep in mind that blah blah blah. And the next is balancing arguments. You can say, on the one hand, blah blah blah, and on the other hand, blah blah blah. Some people say that blah blah blah, and others believe that blah blah blah. It is said blah blah blah, however, blah blah blah. And for asking questions about someone else's opinion or explanation, you can say, could you tell me blah blah blah? What's your opinion, blah blah blah? How do you feel about blah blah blah? What do you think about, or what do you think of blah blah blah? Do you think, or do you feel blah blah blah? May I ask you, do you mean that blah blah blah? Do you agree? Do you share my point of view? What do you mean when you say blah blah blah? What do you mean by that? I don't fully understand. Can you give me some examples? Can you explain to me blah blah blah? Just tell me the reason why blah blah blah. I just don't see why blah blah blah, or what or how blah blah blah. I didn't quite get that. Could someone please tell me blah blah blah? I don't really understand blah blah blah. Are you saying that blah blah blah? I beg your pardon? Okay, next is agreeing and disagreeing. I agree, or I quite agree. I couldn't agree more, or I couldn't agree with you more. That's true, or that's right, exactly, precisely, or right, certainly, Definitely. I think so too. That's just my feeling, or that's just my opinion. That's a very good, or that's a very important point. Yes, of course. Or yes, definitely. Or absolutely. That's exactly what I mean. Or that's exactly what I say. I agree because blah blah blah. I strongly agree with you. I couldn't agree more. That seems very logical to me. I share your point of view. So do I. Or so am I. I'm in all favor what you've been saying. I can see your point, but blah blah blah. That's a very good point, but blah blah blah. Yes, perhaps, but blah blah blah. Yes, but on the other hand, blah blah blah. I agree up to a certain point, but blah blah blah. Maybe, I suppose so. I don't think it's as simple as that. You may be right there. Yes, possibly also, blah blah blah. Yes, up to a point. Yes, in a way. Well, it depends. I see what you mean, but I think that's not the whole story. Yes, but there's also another aspect to consider. I'm afraid I can't agree because blah blah blah. I disagree, I'm afraid. Or I'm disagree with you, I'm afraid. I don't think you're right. I don't want to argue with you, but blah blah blah. I don't agree with you. I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you. Are you seriously suggesting that blah blah blah? No, I really can't agree, I'm afraid. I'm not so certain or at all sure if that is correct or true. I'm sorry, I can't agree. I'm not convinced that blah blah blah. Well, I have my doubts about that. You don't really mean that, do you? I don't think so. And last, for summing up your discussion, you can say, to sum up, blah blah blah. To conclude, blah blah blah. To summarize, blah blah blah. Taking everything to consideration, blah blah blah. I can suggest the following order, blah blah blah. Do you agree? I believe the most important is blah 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 and the least significant is blah blah blah. We have agreed on this following order, blah blah blah. We have decided the number 1 is blah blah blah, the number 2 is blah blah blah, and the number 3 is blah blah blah. Well, that's all for my video. I hope this video can help you to expressing something in a discussion. Thank you for watching.